The vastness of space, with its countless mysteries and infinite darkness, is occasionally pierced by wonders, and as the Federation fleet emerged from warp, such a wonder revealed itself. Ahead of them was a star, a radiant blue sun that bathed the vicinity in a cool azure hue. It was a sight to behold, but it was just the prologue to the marvels that awaited them. Illyra, the Helian ambassador to the Federation, piloted her sleek Helian vessel at the forefront of the fleet. From the emblematic design of her ship, it was evident it represented the Helians' aesthetic sensibilities and their technological prowess. Through the communication channel, Illyra's calm voice resonated on the bridge of the Federation flagship, the Star Strider, where Captain Jorvis listened intently. She had been instrumental in orchestrating this rendezvous, driven by an earnest desire to fortify the fledgling alliance between the Helians and the Federation. Captain Jorvis gazed out of the main viewport, the radiance of the blue sun reflecting in his eyes.
"Magnificent,"
he murmured, admiring the luminosity that spread across space. Illyra, with a hint of pride, responded,
"It's known as Lyrian Prime, one of the oldest stars in our domain, and home to the Helian shipyards."
She pointed forward as a series of structures began to emerge from the blue shimmer, orbiting the star in synchronous harmony. And then they saw them. Two behemoth Helian battlecruisers, hovering gracefully near the shipyards. The cruisers were majestic, with sweeping lines and glowing energy conduits. Their size and design made the Federation ships accompanying the Star Strider seem almost juvenile in comparison. Jorvis let out a low whistle.
"I knew the Helians were advanced, but seeing these battle cruisers, it's humbling."
Illyra nodded, her silver eyes reflecting the radiant ships.
"They are the pinnacle of Helian engineering, Captain, designed for both defense and scientific exploration. But they are not just instruments of war. They are symbols of our culture's dedication to knowledge and unity."
The proximity alert softly chimed, signaling their approach to the docking stations. Illyra instructed,
"Prepare for docking procedures. The Helian shipyards have allocated bays for each of your ships."
Captain Jorvis turned to his crew, issuing a series of crisp commands to ensure a smooth transition into the docking phase.
"Helmsman, align us with the designated bay. Communications, keep channels open with the shipyard's control."
As the Federation fleet began their synchronized descent into the allocated docking bays, crew members from both sides prepared for the exchange of knowledge and technology that would follow. Illyra, sensing the weight of the moment, turned to Jorvis.
"Our worlds have faced many challenges, Captain. But here, in the haven of Lyrian Prime, we find hope. The alliance between the Federation and the Helians is more than just strategy. It's a testament to the fact that when civilizations come together, they can achieve wonders."
Jorvis, always the pragmatic leader, gave her a nod of understanding and respect.
"Ambassador, once our ships are docked and secure, I'd like to convene with my captains. We need to understand the extent of these upgrades and how best to integrate them into our systems."
"Of course,"
Illyra agreed.
"I'll also have our chief scientist join us. We want this transition to be seamless."
As the Star Strider settled into its berth, the sense of anticipation was palpable. Ahead lay a period of transformation where the might of two civilizations would merge in defense of a shared future. The blue sun, Lyrian Prime, stood sentinel in the background, a beacon of hope in the ever-evolving theater of interstellar politics. Promise of power. The Helian shipyard was a sight to behold. Arcing structures made of shimmering alloys, multi-layered platforms hovering in void, and intricate patterns of energy grids painted a breathtaking tableau of an advanced civilization's pinnacle of achievement. It was here that Illyra's ship docked, leading the Federation vessels into a designated formation. Captain Jorvis, along with other Federation ship captains, disembarked from their ships onto a floating platform that adjusted itself to the ship's heights. Their boots made a soft thud on the cerulean surface, which hummed with a quiet energy. Illyra, from her own ship, gestured for the group to follow her.
"Welcome to the Helian Core shipyard,"
she announced, her voice echoing softly.
"You're about to meet our chief scientist, Dr. Thalion. His team has been preparing for your arrival."
The captains exchanged glances, sensing the gravity of this meeting. They followed Illyra into a vast, domed chamber, its walls lined with glowing glyphs and holographic displays showcasing complex schematics. At the chamber's center stood a tall Helian figure, flanked by an entourage of aides and technicians. His piercing eyes surveyed the newcomers as Alira introduced him.
Captains, this is Dr. Thelian, our chief scientist and the architect of our fleet's technological prowess.
Dr. Thelian stepped forward, nodding.
Alira has briefed me on the situation. The stakes have never been higher. Let us not waste time.
His voice had a timbre of both authority and deep-seated wisdom. With a gesture, a massive holographic display emerged from the floor, showcasing a Federation ship and its internal systems. He began,
Your phasers will receive a significant upgrade. We're looking at a 200% power increase.
The hologram zoomed in on the phaser arrays, illustrating the modifications.
In addition, our proprietary cooling technology will ensure that they maintain a higher rate of fire, allowing you a 50% increase in sustained combat engagements.
As the captains murmured among themselves, the display shifted to the ship's shield systems.
Our shield emitters operate on a different harmonic spectrum. They can cycle through frequencies at a rapid rate, dispersing the energy from Drac phaser fire more efficiently. Your vessels will have a greater damage tolerance, enabling prolonged engagements without compromising structural integrity.
Jorvis raised a hand.
And the torpedoes?
Dr. Thelian smiled, a hint of pride evident.
One of our proudest achievements. The torpedoes will have upgraded navigation systems and an increased yield. But what truly sets them apart is the advanced AI. These torpedoes will anticipate and counteract Drac defensive measures, increasing evasion response times and ensuring a higher impact rate.
The atmosphere in the room was electric. The weight of the Helians' contribution to their cause was palpable. But it wasn't just the technology, it was the willingness of the Helians to share their expertise and train the Federation engineers. Captain Jorvis nodded, absorbing the information.
This is beyond what we had hoped for. But what's the time frame?
Dr. Thelian's expression became more solemn.
Given the complexities, we estimate a 30-day window for completion.
The room went silent. 30 days in the galactic scheme of things wasn't long, especially given the scope of the upgrades. Yet, with the Drac threat looming large, every moment counted. Alira stepped forward, sensing the captain's apprehensions.
We understand the urgency of the situation. Our teams will work around the clock to ensure timely completion. But rest assured, while time is of the essence, quality and precision won't be compromised.
Captain Jorvis met her gaze, determination shining in his eyes.
With these upgrades, Alira, I can't wait to take the fight straight to the Drac.
As the meeting adjourned, the Federation captains left with a renewed sense of hope. The galaxy was on the brink, but with allies like the Helians, there was a glimmer of hope, a promise of power, disturbing dispatches. The Helian shipyard, awash in the glow of the luminous blue sun, was a scene of frenzied activity. Federation ships were carefully maneuvered into docking berths. Helian engineers consulted their Federation counterparts, and in the midst of it all, the echo of the monumental briefing still hung in the air. The promise of power was tangible, and every captain, every crew member felt it. But space, vast and unpredictable, has a way of disrupting the best-laid plans. On board the Starstrider, Captain Jorvis and his senior crew had barely settled back into their routines when the communication console lit up with the insignia of the Federation. It wasn't just any communication, it was flagged as high priority. An icy spike of dread wormed its way into Jorvis's gut. Jorvis, instantly alert, signaled to open the channel. The screen flickered to life, showing both Admiral Krell and Alira on a joint call. Admiral Krell, his face, normally stern, now bore lines of strain and exhaustion. His voice, when he spoke, carried the weight of decisions made under fire.
Captain Jorvis,
Admiral Krell's voice was filled with urgency.
there have been significant developments on the front.
The Admiral recounted the confrontation. Zorvin's initial success in heavily damaging a Drac behemoth, the Drac's ruthless counter resulting in the destruction of 2 Federation ships, and the strategic retreat to link up with the fleet. The bridge was silent, each officer grappling with the implications of what they'd just heard. Orinthia was critical. The Drac's encroachment into Federation space was bolder and more aggressive than they'd anticipated. Alira's usually serene face looked troubled.
We've been apprised of the situation as well. This council was initiated to ensure that both our peoples are in alignment.
Jorvis found his voice.
Admiral, what are our next steps?
We regroup, assess, and retaliate. Zorvan's fleet is en route to rendezvous with our main battle group. Every ship, every crew member needs to be ready.
Jorvis nodded, processing the information.
I wish I could help, Admiral, but I know the work we're doing here is important to turn the tide.
Illyra interjected.
Our involvement in this conflict is no longer that of mere observers. Now, as allies, it's time we act. As already agreed, if a little ahead of schedule, we're dispatching 2 of our battlecruisers to bolster your defenses against the Drac.
Jorvis's eyes widened. Those Helian ships were technological marvels. Their mere presence would be a massive boon to the Federation's battle capabilities. Krell's face showed a mix of surprise and gratitude.
Your support changes the tides, Ambassador. The Federation is in your debt.
Krell leaned forward.
If I might request, having a contingent of Federation personnel aboard the Helian battle cruisers would symbolize our joint venture against this threat.
Illyra considered this for a moment before nodding.
It shall be done. Let it be a testament to the unity of our civilizations. However,
Illyra's voice took on a note of caution.
due to our current location, it will take the battlecruisers 7 days to reach the main conflict zone.
Krell nodded.
Understood. We'll prepare for their arrival.
As the communication ended, Captain Jorvis looked out at the vast expanse, filled with a renewed sense of hope. The promise of the Helian battlecruisers offered a glimmer of hope in an otherwise dire situation. Yet as Jorvis gazed out into the vast expanse of space, he knew that in war, time was the most elusive ally, and 7 days could change the fate of the galaxy. Shadows and decisions. The vast void of space was a deceptive realm. It often seemed serene and silent, but those who navigated its depths knew better. Deep within Drac territory, the small stealth ship, agile and nearly invisible to conventional sensors, cut its path through the cold expanse. It was a ship caught between the unseen hammer of the Drac and the anvil of time. Inside, the tension was palpable. After making several small FTL jumps to random locations to ensure the Drac couldn't trail them, the atmosphere aboard the stealth ship grew tense. The group, having ensured their temporary safety, was now faced with the pressing decision of their next move. Their cloak shielded them, but it wasn't a guarantee. The Drac were clever, resourceful, and their territory was vast. They could emerge from anywhere, anytime. A fact Rice kept pointing out as he studied the star charts.
We need to get back to the Federation. It's the logical move.
Rice insisted, fingers dancing across the console, plotting potential routes. Lyra nodded in agreement.
I've been in more close calls than I care to admit, Prince. Heading deeper into enemy territory isn't one I'm keen to add to the list.
Prince Arlen stood at the main viewport, his gaze distant, fixed on the swirling nebulas and distant star clusters.
My people. Those who escaped. They're out there, still resisting. I can't abandon them. Not now.
His voice was a blend of determination and despair. Lithia, always the voice of reason, tried to bridge the gap.
Arlon, no one's suggesting that. But perhaps there's a middle path. We get to the rebels, share what we know, and then make our way to the Federation with more numbers, more strength.
Arlen turned to face them, the weight of a world on his shoulders, evident in his eyes.
You don't understand. Those rebels are more than just survivors. They're symbols. Symbols of resistance, of hope. We can't let them down.
Rice exhaled, running a hand through his hair.
Look, I get it. The drive to stand by your people, especially in their darkest hours. But what good are we to them if we get caught before we even reach them?
The prince walked over to the console, fingers skimming over the holographic projections.
Here.
He pointed to a cluster of stars.
This is where we last made contact. If they're still out there, it's here.
Lyra squinted at the map.
That's the Viserion Nebula. It's dense. Sensors would be unreliable. It could offer us cover.
And risk,
Rice added, but there was no venom in his voice, just wearied realism. A heavy silence filled the cabin. Each person lost in their thoughts weighed the risks, the rewards, the values they held dearest. The very essence of their mission was alliances, unity, and collective defiance. A realization that in a universe where threats like the Drac existed, divides were a luxury none could afford. Lithia broke the silence.
We stand together then. To the rebels first, then, with added strength, to the Federation.
Arlon looked gratefully at his companions.
Thank you.
Rice, despite his reservations, smirked.
Well, let's just hope your rebels have good food.
With a shared chuckle lightening the atmosphere, the coordinates were set. The stealth ship, a silent testament to hope, resilience, and the collective spirit, warped into the embrace of the nebula and the promises it held.